So today's video is unfortunately a relatively heavy topic, and that topic is Froot Loops. I mean, which is better? Like, Froot Loops, Apple Jacks? Because in my opinion, clearly, Apple Jacks are better. In fact, I would say objectively, Apple Jacks are better than Froot Loops in almost every single way. I'm kidding. I'm not kidding about the Apple Jacks. They are better than Froot Loops, but I'm kidding about the topic. If anything, I was kind of doing satire on the topic itself, because the topic for today is revolving around politics and how they have gotten intertwined with Froot Loops for some reason. You'll learn more as the video goes, but it's a really weird situation that I've been always kind of scared to dig into. I've always had a very vested interest in politics. I actually went into college as a political science major before switching to psychology, but I've realized over time that politics have become less of studying like how governments work and how humans interact with each other, and it's become more of this battle between red and blue. It's such a strange, baseless civil war that just categorizes people into random categories based on a certain ideology that they might just sort of agree with. And so I've always been scared to come out and talk about my thoughts because, to be honest, while I do have ideologies that lean more in a leftward direction, I'm not gonna label myself as just a Democrat. I mean, I grew up as a Republican. I was a right-leaning kid in middle school. I was an edgy asshole. And as I grew up, I started to meet new and different people who are very, vastly different than me and started to lean more left. But as an adult, I've realized I'm not an elephant or a donkey. I'm not going to categorize myself into the left wing or the right wing just because I have some ideologies I agree with on one side. Because once you do that, people just start to categorize you. Like, oh, you're a left-winger? Oh, you got blue hair and pronouns? Oh, you're on the right wing. You must hate the LGBTQ. Where, humans are a goddamn spectrum. The brain is so incredibly complex. I actually saw a meme the other day that was like, if sexuality is a spectrum, then there is actually one person on Earth that is the gayest. So if you're watching this right now, congratulations, you win. But I'm getting so far off track right now. Essentially what I'm saying is, go into this video with an open mind. I'm not here to tell you what you should think, but I'm here to tell you what's going on, giving my opinion on it, and then letting you do whatever you want with that information. So jump on this ride, get your saddle ready. We are going to be digging into the Froot Loops cancellation that's been happening on Twitter recently. And it all starts with book banning. If any of you are unaware, there's been a mass book banning that's been happening in the United States recently, with left-wing parents being like, I don't like this book, get it banned, and it's gone. Right-wing parents being like, this book has a gay person in it, this is propaganda, get it banned now. It's things like that. That was a bit of a biased way to explain it, but still, it's things like that. And recently, Froot Loops had a thing in Canada where they had links on their boxes allowing children to go in and look at some of these banned books. And first, before we go any farther, I want to just show you these books, because when you hear the word banned books, it sounds like you're going to be reading something like how to build a bomb or complex directions on how to craft methamphetamine. But no, this is what it looks like. So if you go into Froot Loops web... I'm literally stumbling over my words so much right now. If you go into Froot Loops website, not the woodwind instrument, you find a list of books. And one of the first books, and the one that stood out to me the most, and the one that I briefly made a joke about, actually that might have been in a take I didn't include in the video, so ignore that, but is a book about just literally a picture book where a deaf child meets their neighbor who is an Arabic family, and they're nice to each other. That is literally all it is. I gave this a read while I was sitting at work earlier. It's situations like that, as well as just, I guess that one of the things that people could be angry at is, gender empowerment. But, acceptance, that's not really propaganda. It's just telling people to be nice. I consider that more the golden rule than anything, less of a left-wing ideology. But still, the books themselves aren't exactly the most harmful thing on earth. They just tend to be around topics that some people consider controversial or just really heavy, such as the concept of being Arabic in America, because for some reason, that is a heavy topic. And it sucks that it is, but understandably, considering the state of our politics, people react adversely to it. And of course, there are accounts on Twitter online going on and saying things like, Froot Loops is now encouraging kids to go online and read. I mean, there's more than that. Their free library of woke propaganda. And right off the bat, that is a weird way to word it. I mean, clearly, the guy named End Wokeness isn't going to give you an unbiased news article title. I'm really struggling today. They're not going to give you some sort of unbiased title, so of course it's going to sound a little crappy, but at the same time, this is my thought, and this is the thought that you should take away from this video as a whole. if you have a certain ideology, which let's be honest with each other, let's surface with each other. If you are a right-winger or a left-winger, everyone here is going to be facing propaganda. Every single one of us who is glued to our screens is experiencing propaganda at least 20 times a day. So when you think about it, people who are terrified of your child seeing a certain kind of propaganda, does that mean that the ideology that you have isn't that strong? If you're scared your child's going to drop it the second they read a book about being friends with your neighbor who's Arabic, is that what it's about? Or maybe is it that the internet has fed into this reactionary concept where everyone just reacts to a certain word? They see woke propaganda, they see the word woke, and they just shit their britches immediately because it's the only way that they've been trained to react to it. It's literally like classical conditioning. Get Pavlov out here with the salivating dogs. It's the exact same thing. Because let's be real, the human brain, evolutionarily, is not designed to handle this much controversy, this much hate, all at the same time. We developed in villages where being social was literally life or death. We had to be friends with our neighbors and then hate the other town because who cares? We'll never see them again. But on Twitter and on the internet where we see everyone everywhere all at once, love that movie by the way, you are always inundated with people who have differing opinions than you. And so you are like tricked into this narrative that the world hates the way that you think. When in reality, there's just a few people who disagree with you. That's all it is. And if they disagree with you, what's the worst that can happen? They disagree with you. That's all it'll ever be. Because, let's be real. The big fear that I think a lot of people have is this concept that if they allow certain people to think differently than them, or they allow wokeness to take over, that it's going to consume the world. It's going to take over the government. You're going to have to be required to be gay. Me in 2070 being executed for being straight. Memes like that, people think that's real. When, in reality, the people with the most money, they're the ones who are in control. They're the ones who are making up the ideologies. And at the end of the day, there's never going to be an ideology that comes forward that ends up with you getting murdered for thinking a certain way. That is called a dystopia, and it's so incredibly rare that I feel like a lot of people have been brainwashed into thinking it's extremely possible, when it's not. It exists in books and maybe Russia. like that's essentially all it is. The United States is too divided to fall into one certain ideology. When you don't need to spend this time being hateful to people on Twitter, when all you're doing is essentially wasting precious resource, and that precious resource is time. It's time and energy that you could be spending looking at the world in a little bit of a better way, in a little bit of a happier way, in a way that doesn't stress you out as much. You know, I feel like that's a rational way to look at it. There's only two ways to properly handle this kind of stuff. There's one, which is get away from the internet, stop interacting with it, because you're going to just be unhealthily obsessed with the people who disagree with you. Or two, fully educate yourself on the ideologies of both sides of the politics. Learn everything you can about the right wing, learn everything you can about the left wing, and do it in a non-biased way. And then formulate how you want to think based off that. Because that's what I did, and that is why I refuse to stand on just the blue pedestal or the red one, because it's so much more complex than that. It isn't just about who you're going to vote for in the next election, which is what it should always be about. It should just be about that, because it's not about how you live your life. Like, people are starting to assign teams to everything. Getting tattoos, for some reason, is becoming a liberal thing. It's getting tattoos. I don't think everyone's tattooing Bo Jiden's face on your head. Face on your head. I'm really struggling today, but you get my point. But anyways, I've talked way too long about this and haven't really given my input on the actual boycott itself. To be honest, I don't care. If you don't want to buy Froot Loops because you're scared it's going to teach kids about being nice to people, whatever. That's an extremely biased way to say it, and I apologize. But if you aren't going to buy Froot Loops, it's not going to affect me. In fact, it's not going to affect Froot Loops. They're not going to sell an extra 2 boxes. Some other kid's going to come in and buy it. I'll buy it. Sometimes I go out at like 11 p.m. and go buy cereal from Walmart right before they close. And all the ladies in the store get angry at me and yell at me. But anyways, I appreciate you guys sitting here with me. I want to hear your thoughts, though, genuinely. I kind of just completely raw dogged this video. I didn't write a single script. The only thing I scripted was the opening joke. So I'm genuinely curious what you guys think. But at the same time, subscribe! That's the one thing I care about the most, because I want this community to grow. Not just a community of a single ideology, but a community of people. Because that's all we are. We're a bunch of humans experiencing the human experience. And we tend to disagree on things, and teams just make it easier to understand. But break through that. You know that you can, because you know that it's in your programming, and if you understand that programming, you can reverse it. But anyways, thank you guys for being here. Like the video if you liked it. If you hated it, dislike it, I guess. But come around for more, because I make more content that isn't just this. And of course, for the song of the day, I'm going to give you guys Time in a bottle. I listened to it this morning. I haven't heard it in years, and I love it so much. So give it a listen. I'm going to add to the Songs of the Day playlist. And thank you guys for being here. And as always, adios, arrivederci, goodbye, good night. And yeah, break through that system. It is not black and white, I promise.